Thus far in our series of videos, we've been looking at the Wesleyan quadrilateral in relationship to digital discipleship. So we've talked about scripture, we've talked about reason and logic, we've talked about history and tradition. Now we get to spend a little time talking about experience. And to that end, I've got a panel of some colleagues who do this on a regular basis. And so we're going to discuss, what does digital discipleship look in its everyday life, and how do we go about using this for ministry purposes together in digital discipleship. So I've have them join with me. I thought we'd maybe start with some introductions. For those that don't remember, my name is Bryce Ashlin-Mayo, and I'm the president of Ambrose University in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And for 25 years before that, I was a local church pastor, deeply passionate about online ministry and digital discipleship. And so I come with that kind of experience and background. And maybe we'll go here to my right with Lindsay.
And I'm Lindsay Murphy. I'm a pastor at the Valley Sydney in Sydney, Ohio. And I'm also a registered evangelist in the Church of the Nazarene.
Hi, I'm Pastor Elaine Briefman, and I am the pastor of the Sonoma Valley Church of the Nazarene, and I'm also the founder of Women Rocking Ministry. And that includes 8 hours of Zooms every week for the last 5 years.
Ooh. I'm Sarah Kinzer. I serve the Church of the Nazarene on the Virginia District, and I am the co-host of the Pocket Pulpit podcast.
I'm Christopher Cruz-Osorio. I serve as the pastor of student ministries at the Church of the Nazarene in Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to host a conversation together as we look at some questions around just the experience of digital discipleship. So the first question I'm going to ask, for anybody who wants to go first, is where have you seen digital discipleship happen in your personal life? What's your personal experience with digital discipleship? Anybody want to go first?
I'd love to. One of the greatest benefits I've found for me personally with online ministry and digital discipleship is that having availability and accessibility to other pastors and other leaders across the country and across the world, having access to peer-to-peer learning, coaching platforms, and things like that. I've been able to confide in other pastors and hear their feedback. And I think it's a struggle for many pastors and leaders to be really vulnerable in what they need support in their local area, because you never quite know if the person you've confided in is going to run across that person at the grocery store. But being able to reach out and be mentored by somebody online allows you to know that this is a safe space and I can be vulnerable and ask my questions as I really need to ask them.
Also, we can sometimes, I think, forget the power that digital proximity can have, because sometimes I think we take for granted the nature of, I can just text that person, I can call that person, all forms of digital, by the way. I can email that person, I can watch or listen to a podcast and build community. I think that's just a really good way that sometimes we just take for granted that we're all actually kind of being digitally discipled on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
One of the things that I think for me is being able to do my continuing education and having the ability to do that no matter where I'm at. So I travel a lot, and that takes away any need to be physically in a location in order to get the education that I need. And nearly every level of education is now available through digital means.
Yeah, all those traditional geographic barriers all gone with digital. Excellent.
Yeah. We moved in the midst of 2020 and moved away from all the familiar things. And at first it was disorienting. And while people maybe consider me to be young, I'm not as young as they think. And I didn't even consider how I could connect with people still in a space where I knew nobody, and then continue to grow, continue to lean into the calling and the gifting, even though I'm now hundreds of miles away from the people who kind of launched me into the ministry that I am in now.
So good. Appreciate that. One of the things that I think this just articulates all the reasons why we just take for granted some of those things. They're just part of our everyday life now. And so it's not like a super scary thing, digital discipleship, because we're all experiencing it in one way, shape, or form through texting or email or Facebook. These are all just means that we use on a regular basis. So it kind of reduces that scary barrier that digital discipleship, can I do that? That seems so overwhelming. Well, you're already doing it in your personal life with your relationships and your education, with kind of mentorship, all of those things in the everyday life. Now let's switch this question up a little bit and ask, where have we seen digital discipleship happen in the lives of others? As pastors and ministers and leaders in different contexts, where have we seen this take place and thrive in the lives of others?
Yeah, one of the stories that comes to mind for me is after a youth group one Sunday night, I had a student a couple of days later just text me a question. He went, "Hey, I've been thinking about this particular topic and have a question." And so he asked me a question, which I had to respond by saying, "I actually have to think about this question before I give you a response." And so it gives an opportunity to say, "Hey, like, we met on a Sunday night for 2 hours at youth group, but the conversation can continue outside of the allotted time that, we've deemed that discipleship happens in the building," to say it that way.
It's good. Same, kind of almost a similar thing to that geography barrier, right? It removes all that. It's good.
And I have a friend who actually does virtual reality church.
Okay, yeah.
And he said that in the virtuality space, that you don't know anything about the person. You don't know what they look like. You don't know their address, but he has deeper conversations with them because of that anonymity than he does with people he has in real life church and at the VR church. And he said that he has deeper conversations with the virtual reality people than he does in his own congregation because of just that anonymity space. Yeah.
A deeper level for maybe authenticity. Right?
Yes. Yes.
It's good. I know during the pandemic, one of the things that I experienced in kind of the ministry that we were a part of is the number of people who were joining us who wouldn't normally come to church because we went to them. So like the people in the disability community or people who struggle with social anxiety, all of a sudden the church was uniquely available to them. And there was like a celebration, actually, if you look in kind of the literature, a celebration in the disability community of like, oh, all of a sudden the church and all of its programs were available to me. And kind of the lament after in that community was like, and then they kind of all shut it down after. So it's like almost like you're welcomed in, and we removed all the barriers. And then after we added some barriers back, it's just a reminder of like all the possibilities that sometimes in different communities and groups, removing all those barriers that all of a sudden digital allows in a unique way.
I jokingly ask my students, what would St. Paul do in prison if we handed him a smartphone? I mean, he would just constantly be just doing stuff and reaching out to people and we have it in our pocket nearly every day.
It's good.
And there may be physical barriers for people to access in-person church, but there's also emotional barriers for some people. And so I had the experience of creating discipleship curriculum and then getting the opportunity to lead the life group that we were using it for in an online Bible study. And in that, there were people who had stepped away from church for a variety of different reasons. And there also were people in the church in the Bible study, who were just interested. They were associated with our church through the preschool that's connected to our church. And they were curious, but they weren't ready to come to our church yet. And so I've seen people engage in online Bible studies who were not ready to be in person. And because they were eased into the conversation about God and about faith and about the Bible, they were willing eventually to step into the physical building of a church. And I've also seen people who had stepped away from the church with church hurt be able to tend to their spiritual needs while they are healing emotionally.
Yeah, it kind of reduced like lots of those barriers and made it easier for people to connect. That's awesome. That's awesome. Anybody else? Other examples of this in the lives of others?
Traveling around, I meet a lot of different people, and you only get a few moments with them.
Yeah.
And so being able to extend that experience,
that's good.
Right? It becomes discipleship.
Yes.
Because now the teaching can continue. I can go back to my home, they can go back to theirs, but it doesn't have to be this one-time experience that we have. You can be accessible to them. And that opened a whole new world for discipleship in terms of the evangelism that I'm doing. It doesn't have to be relegated to, I came to your church and that's the end of it, and maybe I'll come back next year.
In many ways, what was once just a moment has now become a movement in somebody's life, because you get to have extended periods of connection. That's really good.
And there was a critique that I heard at one point that says you can't serve from your couch. You can't serve digitally. But I've been able to see people find out, as they build their community online, they find out the needs that people have, and they are able to send the things to those people. I've also seen people who have had, who've needed a community that they didn't have in person. They found that community online, and I've watched their online community show up for them. When they've needed to go to a different state, they've had a place to stay with somebody that they already feel safe with. Or when they needed connections for different treatment options, they had those connections set up, and they could go and find good resources because those connections were already established online.
It's good. No, thank you. Anybody else? Any other
I did want to mention that just last night, I read an email that was for my district, and I'm not in my state right now, but the pastors in the zone where I'm at were having a meeting that was spiritual direction, and I'd forgotten about it, but it was right before I went to bed. And so I actually got on the Zoom with everybody, and I'm halfway across the country, and got to be able to go through the spiritual exercises with everybody, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, it has really reduced all of those the geographic barriers, the time barriers, all of those things. Digital definitely allows for all of that.
Yeah, the world in a sense has become smaller.
Yeah.
And so I think of our Spanish-speaking campus at our church, we live stream our Spanish-speaking service Eastern time, noon, and in Panama, there's a house that live streams our service, and the community gathers there,
nice.
And they worship alongside us, and we're in Virginia, and there's a family in Wisconsin, and so all these different places, different time zones, we otherwise would have never crossed paths if it wasn't for this unique opportunity. And so now we're in a space where it's like we have online ushers from these different areas, and so it's like we have people in Panama or Mexico that when they say, "Oh yeah, let me talk about home church," it's in Virginia, and I love them and they love me, and so that's just another awesome connection of what can happen.
Yeah, oftentimes try to help people nuance that by
Instead of saying what's good you could do digitally or what you should do online, because people say you can't serve online or you can't give online. So what is the church? What do you want a healthy church member to do? We want them to give, serve, be a part of things, have a community. I would say, well, if somebody can do all of those things online, even at a distance, and we all have experiences and stories of people doing all those things, then isn't that great comparatively to we all have people in our churches that do none of that in person, who sit at the back, who don't show up, who don't give, etc. There is just something about just reducing it to what do you want to see happen at the end, and kind of removing the means as being the main part of the conversation.